A very good morning to all. Myself, Dr. Dipali Rana, Assistant Professor, Department of Zoology, Dolphin PG Institute of Biomedical and Natural Sciences, Dehradun. On behalf of Department of Zoology, I welcome you all on webinar entitled Environmental Laws for the Protection of Wetlands and IPR Issues on the occasion of World Wetland Day. It is a delightful moment for me to welcome all the participants to this webinar. Thank you all for joining us today. I heartily welcome our speakers for today's webinar, Dr. Sharda Kosankar, Senior Scientist, EBGD, CSI NERI Nagpur, Ms. Pallavi Kadam, Founder, IP Adventure LLP, and Dr. M. Muruganandam, Principal Scientist, Indian Institute of Soil and Water Conservation, Dehradun. I also extend a very warm welcome to Dr. Beena Joshi Bhatt, Organizing Secretary of this webinar and Head, Department of Zoology, my colleagues Dr. D.K. Bharadwaj and Dr. Shalini Anand. I will now request Dr. Beena Joshi Bhatt ma'am to say a few words about this webinar. Over to you, ma'am.
Thank you, Dr. Dipali. Good morning, everyone. Myself, Dr. Beena Joshi Bhatt, Head Department of Zoology, Dolphin PG Institute of Biomedical and Natural Sciences, Dehradun. I welcome you all in this national level webinar on environmental laws for the protection of wetlands and IPR issues on the occasion of World Wetlands Day. First of all, I welcome you all and our eminent speaker, Dr. Sharda Kosankar, Senior Scientist, Environmental Biotechnology and Genomics Division, CSIR NEDI, Nagpur. Dr. M. Muruganandam, Principal Scientist at Indian Institute of Soil and Water Conservation, Dehradun. Ms. Pallavi Kadam, Founder, IT Adventure LLC. Dear participants, as you know, World Wetlands Day is celebrated each year on 2nd February to raise awareness about wetlands. This day also marks the anniversary of the Convention on Wetlands, which was adopted as an international treaty in 1971. Nearly 90% of the world's wetlands have been degraded, and we are losing wetlands 3 times faster than forests. Yet, wetlands are critically important ecosystems that provide many societal benefits like food and habitat for fish and wildlife, including threatened and endangered species, water quality improvement, economically beneficial natural products for human use, and opportunities for recreation, education, and research. Wetlands action for people and nature is the theme in this year, highlighting the importance of action to ensure the conservation and sustainable use of wetlands for human and planetary health. Dear participants, in today's webinar, you are going to enlighten yourself by our esteemed speaker. Dr. Sharda Kosankar gives talk on environmental laws for the protection of wetlands in India. Ms. Pallavi Kadam shares her knowledge on climate change, IT issues, and challenges. Dr. Muruganandam tells you about wetlands and their importance for conservation of these resources. I hope this webinar is fruitful to all of you. Thank you. Dr. Dipali, unmute yourself. Dr. Dipali, please unmute yourself.
Thank you so much, ma'am. Now, without further ado, we will move ahead with the program. I will now welcome our first speaker for today's webinar, Dr. Sharda Kosankar, ma'am. She is Senior Scientist, Environmental Biotechnology and Genomics Division, CSI NERI, Nagpur, to kindly deliver her lecture on the topic Environmental Laws for the Protection of Wetlands in India. But before that, I would like to introduce ma'am to you all with her brief citation. Dr. Sharda Kosankar is working as Senior Scientist at Environmental Biotechnology and Genomics Division, CSIR NERI, Nagpur. She has done MSc, B.Ed and PhD from Nagpur University and started her career as a project assistant at Environmental Impact and Risk Assessment Division at CSIR NERI, Nagpur in the year 2003. She has 19 years of research and professional experience in the field of environmental sciences. She worked as research officer at MOEF for 2 years before she joined as a scientist at CSI NEDI in the year 2013. She is also NABIT EIA coordinator for sector mining, river valley and thermal power project plants, and functional area expert of ecology and biodiversity. She is the recipient of various fellowships like Senior Research Fellowship of CSIR, Research Associate of CSIR, Women Postdoctoral Fellowship of UGC. She worked for almost 60 EIA projects of different sectors and research project on methyl mercury for DST Government of India. She has published 30 research papers in different international and national journals. She received the Best Paper Awards in different conferences for her work of PhD. She has done her PhD on wastewater treatment of Burmese technology and postdoctoral research on anaerobic biogas energy generation by wastewater treatment. With these words, I welcome ma'am and request ma'am to kindly deliver her lecture. Over to you, ma'am.
Thank you, Dr. Dipali. Uh, I'm really very glad to be a part of this webinar. And since today is 2nd February, this is the World Wetland Day. So today, let's wish each other to become a happy or a very means highly important day, that is World Wetland Day. So wish you very happy World Wetland Day. And with this, I'll share my presentation and give a minute. I'll start it. So I think this is visible. And coming to our topic, World Wetland Day, that is on 2nd February 2022. The theme given by UNESCO is Wetland Action for People and Nature. This theme itself suggests that wetland needs our help as wetland are needed for our life. And it's a duty of every person living on this earth to restore, to manage, to give a value to these wetlands and to love these wetlands. So, so giving importance to this day, 2nd February, UNESCO and all other United Nations organizations also giving the awareness, they are spreading the awareness about the wetlands, which are highly important part of this planet. So, coming to the importance of this day, in last year on 30th August 2021, United Nations has joined the resolution, and then because of that, this is a very special day of 2022, and on this day they have given a very important theme, which is wetland action for people and nature. So looking at this theme, they have given a lot of policies and action plan that for 1 year how this different organization which are involved for the conservation and management of these wetlands. So we know that how important these wetlands are for this earth, because they are the almost 4% of the earth has been occupied by the wetlands, and almost 40% of the species, different animal species, they are breeding on these wetlands. And since from last 3 decades, it has been observed that they are minimizing, they are disappearing from this earth because of various reasons. And then now it's become the responsibility of everyone to get awake and to see its conservation. They act as a kidney of this earth. As in our body, kidney helps in purification. So wetlands are like the sponges. So they help in purification of water. They help in the soil restriction of soil erosion, as well as recharging of groundwater. They store almost 30% of the carbon of this earth. So the main work they have performed is carbon sequestration. And similarly, they also help in reduction of disaster. So disaster management are the main part which has been played important role has been played by the wetlands. And lot of livelihood facilities which are the people are getting a lot of economy from the wetland. So they are highly important for this earth. Then it supports the maximum bird diversity, microfaunal diversity, as well as the terrestrial diversity also, because terrestrial fauna, when they in a forest in search of water, they reach to the this wetland, so they are also getting benefited, as well as aquatic animals are also getting benefited. So it is a transition between aquatic system as well as terrestrial system. So this transition phase is highly important for making a stability of this planet, because it plays see, though they are very fragile and sensitive ecosystems, but it helps in the overall biogeochemical cycle of this earth. They contribute in the carbon cycle as well as nitrogen cycle, phosphorus cycle, water cycle. So all the cycles of biogeochemical cycle are being monitored, and they have been main role of wetlands are there for maintaining of these cycles. And these wetlands are the ground for the migratory birds. From far away, the birds come to a destination where they came specially for the breeding or for laying their eggs. So there are transboundary species also which are getting benefited from other wetlands to different countries. So in that case, it's a complete. We need to look into it in a complete as a globe, not as a restricted to any other country, because these birds, they didn't understand the boundary of any nation. For them, it is a whole planet for their movement. So we have to increase our view and see this every wetland as a which indirectly contributes for the existence of human being, because indirectly, although they are placed in any other countries, but then they help in the maintaining the all carbon cycles, phosphorus, nitrogen cycle, and all the biogeochemical cycles. So indirectly, they are directly related to our life itself. So it's a time that all the population staying on this earth, they should come together and protect and conserve these wetlands. Because when in the rainy season, what happened, the lot of runoff water enters into the water system where there is a low lying area. So in this flow, a lot of this sediments have a lot of pollutants carry along with it, and when it enters into the aquatic system, this mud flats and these wetlands, they absorb those pollutants, and they restrict that pollutants to enter into the groundwater, and maximum pollutants has been absorbed by the hydrophytes present on these wetlands. Therefore, a lot of this technology of wetland is also useful in the treatment of wastewater, treatment of sewage water, treatment of industrial waters as well. So recently in Delhi also we have one constructed wetland to the canals which are passing to the Yamuna River. So based on this idea only, people have constructed some of the artificial wetlands for the treatment of wastewater. And it also protects the banks from the eroding, because these hydrophytes and the plants present on the banks, they restrict that flow there itself. So the pollutants as well as the bank also get protected, and the pollutants get absorbed there itself. So it has a very big role for managing complete whole of the earth. And from 1700, almost 90% of the world wetland has been degraded, and because of this industrial activities, the lot of wetlands are facing many problems. and it attracts the economies, because uh, obviously livelihood is dependent on these wetlands, because people are getting the food, vegetables, aquatic food, also even paddy field are also comes under the wetland category. So agriculture crops also coming from it. Livelihood is dependent of almost 1 billion people are depend on this wetland, and therefore these are very critically important ecosystems. And these ecosystems also have mangrove wetlands also, because some of the wetlands, they are brackish water wetlands. So mangrove plantation, mangrove forests, they also comes under the wetland category. And these wetlands also contribute for the fishes which are coming specially for the breeding to the estuary region, or to the any brackish water ecosystem. And this especially these wetlands, they contribute in the economy of this country by contributing to the ecological services. And ecological services, they provide us by giving a lot of medicinal plants are also being grown in this wetland. So medicinal use is also there. Then we are getting a lot of vegetables, and then aquatic products from this wetland. So they indirectly contribute to the economy also. Various threatened migratory species like pochard or fish eagle or pelican, they are coming to this wetland for their breeding purpose only. So we need to protect this wetlands very significantly. And these wetlands is, they are the sink for the carbon sequestration, because this paddy crops or the any hydrophytes which are growing on this wetlands, they are directly absorbing the carbon from the environment as well as from the wetland also. And since it is a transition zone between aquatic and terrestrial, a lot of microorganisms are very nicely grown in that area. And these microorganisms help in the decomposition, because when runoff water take a lot of garbage along with it, it directly come to this wetland, and that has been degraded by the microorganism present in that wetland. So these microorganisms directly by degrading this, they contribute for the sequestration of carbon, and this carbon has been stored in this wetland for the years together, maybe up to the centuries together. So this wetland has a very important role in the climate change. Since we are studying a lot of sustainable development targets, their goals, and then we are seeing how climate change is going on this earth. But then this we cannot neglect, because 4% of the area of this earth is occupied by this wetland. So this is far much which help in the balancing this environment. It helps in absorbing the carbon into that ecosystem. And we have studied earlier that there are coal has been formed by the fossils which has been pressed under the sedimentation activity. And then after thousands of years it has been converted to coal. So similar in the that field, lot of organic carbon is deposited in this wetland, and lot of this deposited organic mass of plants, even animals, are been degraded in that ecosystem only. And then after so many years, definitely it will convert to it will be in a strong carbon form. And like maybe like coal or some other element, it will be the carbon deposits. So these deposits can be the store for carbon, because maybe converted to fuel, or maybe a present carbon deposition can be very easily done by the wetlands. So we need to maintain an equilibrium between these wetlands as well as the overall earth, overall environment of this earth. Then, as I told you, a lot of benefits in improvement of water quality, because it recharges the groundwater. It filters. They are the sponge. They are the kidney of this earth. So they infiltrate the water which is going to groundwater, and it purifies. So that is being also protected. then it restrict and control the erosion of soil, as well as it controls the floods also. It helps in the habitat enhancement, habitat improvement, because it supports for the life, and then it also helps for the supply of water also, and then recreational activities, because there are so many lakes, so many wetlands are there where people especially visit for as a tourism point of view. Then it provides the partnership between two different countries, two to three different countries, because some of the species may be migrating to some other country for their breeding purpose. So in that way, those countries has to be partner for developing of those species. Then it gives the education scope of education, because there are so many species and a lot of biodiversity is being observed in this wetland. So it gives you the chance for education to develop your knowledge on different aspects. Then it gives the aesthetic appeal. It gives you a very good appearance to this earth as well. Then we have seen there are a lot of threats to these wetlands, like urbanization, water pollution, then agricultural activities, agriculture runoff, and people are using a lot of fertilizers, pesticides, insecticides. But then ultimately, what happened? This has been washed out, and it reached to the low-lying areas, and along with the runoff water, it mixed to the aquatic system, and that affects the biodiversity of that area, and it bioaccumulates in all other organism, all other stratas present there, and then that ultimately biomagnify into the food chain and affects the whole of the life. And the dependent life species, dependent consumers who are feeding on those species definitely get bioaccumulated. Like for example, methyl mercury. As I told you, I have done some work on this, and I have studied one lake near thermal power plant, and there I have observed that the due to emissions and due to runoff water, the mercury has been spilled into the lake, and that has been bioaccumulated into the fishes, and also as well as the weeds of that lake. And then when we studied it for almost for 3 years, in every month we have observed that it has been deposited in those fishes as well as in the weeds, and the people staying in nearby that lake were feeding on those fishes. And it was also observed that in their hair also, which we analyzed, there was concentration of methyl mercury, because in the sediment, what happened in the lake, this mercury get converts to the methyl mercury with the help of methanogenic bacteria as well as sulfur reducing bacteria. So this bacteria converts this inorganic form of mercury to the organic form of methyl mercury, and this is 1,000 times toxier than the mercury. As everybody knows, mercury is toxic, but then methyl mercury is 1,000 times toxic because it is in organic form, and very easily it can flow into our blood, and it gets stick to the any animal cell. So the studies were showing that in the hair samples of the people who are feeding fishes were found to be more concentration of mercury as well as methyl mercury in their hair. So the biomagnification has been studied at one lake, and that is also equal to the wetland, because earlier that lake was of 100 hectare area, but at present when we started our study, that lake was of only 70 hectare area. So slowly, the area of that lake has been occupied for developmental activities, and the area is getting shrink due to these activities only. And that lake also requires a lot of protection from authorities, and we have suggested the restoration plan for that lake also. So this is how this is the situation of so many lakes in our country. They are getting under threat because of the greenhouse gas emissions. Due to climate change, also they are under threat. Then aquatic weed invasion. A lot of fertilizers are being reaching to the aquatic system, and that supports the growth of aquatic weeds, and that cause the eutrophication. And because of that, like in case of Chilka Lake, Chilka Lake and the lake from Rajasthan. that are also facing the same problem of aquatic weed invasion. Also in Nagpur, we have so many lakes. Hardly 2 to 3 lakes are there, which are completely in a position. All the aquatic weed has grown, and nowhere we can see the water even. So similar is the situation in so many cities of India also. Then dredging and salt mining also affects to the lakes which are located on the coastal line. Then what is the status of wetlands in India? In India, we have total 896 wetlands, and out of that, 47 wetlands are considered to be Ramsar sites, and then 129 wetlands are of internationally significant wetlands, and other wetlands are 720 wetlands. So under these wetlands, the river floodplain are also considered. Like we have many big rivers like Ganga, Kaveri, Krishna, Godavari, Tapi. So these rivers delta area is also considered to be the wetland. And in every state we have very important and very big wetland as well as lakes also. In especially in India, 4.6% of the land is under wetland condition, and that covers the area of 15.26 million hectares. And this is a big area for the country like India. 15.26 million hectare is only under the cover of this wetland conditions. So and they are basically helping to maintain the overall ecological balance of this country. So there are Sundarban wetland. Like in India, it's the biggest wetland of brackish water wetland, which is covered with the mangrove plantation. And in last 3 years, 35. In last 3 years, not 3 years. In last 3 decades, 30% of the this wetland has already degraded, and in the coming days we need to protect all the wetlands which are specially notified by the government of India as well as under Ramsar site. Then this Chilka Lake. Chilka Lake is also one of the Ramsar site designated by UNESCO, and very clearly it has been shown that in many wetlands of India are under the stage of shrinking or under encroachment. Like in Dal Lake is also shrink, and now almost 50% of the area has been under the encroachment. Similarly, in case of Chennai, also 90% of wetlands are lost due to unplanned urbanization. In case of Vadodara, there are 30.5% of wetlands are almost degraded, and in Hyderabad, 55% of wetlands are receiving inefficient waste management and resin pollution, and there are unchecked urban development. In case of Mumbai also, 71% of wetlands are lost already, and in Ahmedabad, 57% of wetlands are degraded. Then in Bangalore, 56%, at Pune, 37%, and at Delhi, 38% of wetlands are under eutrophication. So this data itself shows that what is the urgency to protect those wetlands, because a lot of work is there. If the people of this earth or even this nation even starts working on the green economy, so definitely they have to first take up this activity of wetland conservation and management, because unless we manage those wetlands, they are act as a blue lungs of this earth. So, the as lungs have the maximum capacity of storing oxygen and producing all the gaseous exchange for this body. Similarly, these wetlands are playing similar role. Since many zooplankton, phytoplankton, they are part of this aquatic system. Nobody observe them because we are able to see only trees, and everybody knows they help in the oxygen and carbon exchange. But then nobody knows how far this wetlands or this aquatic system, which contains the phytoplankton, a very small organism, which contributes of overall photosynthesis of this country, this whole earth. Almost 80% of the photosynthesis is being conducted by this phytoplanktons only, and nobody knows, because of that only overall ecological balance is maintained. Then in Indian Constitution also there is a provision for wetland protection. Article 48A states that there is a directive principle for protection and improvement of environment and safeguarding the forest and wildlife. And this provision uh, suggests you to take care of all your water bodies. Also, in Article 51A of this Constitution, suggests it's a fundamental duty of every citizen and government of this country to take care of all the wetland and to safeguard them. So, as per constitutional provisions, also we are bound to take care of all our wetlands as well as lakes. Then, by Government of India, Ministry of Environment, Forest and Climate Change has notified Wetland Conservation and Management Rule in 2017. Under this rule, they have established State Wetland Authority, then setting up of National Wetland Committee, and then provision of activities and penalties under these provisions. So we'll see one by one what is State Wetland Authority. So under State Wetland Authority, this rule is state of union territory according to Rule 5.1 and Rule 5.2. The state wetland authority has to be placed, and the main authority of this wetland is minister, state minister. The environment minister is the main authority for this, and the member, they take members from different subjects like wetland ecology, hydrology, fisheries, landscape ecology, then socioeconomic. So since this is not only one single subject, they require the different experts from different domains like biodiversity also, and then economists. So a lot of experts are required in this committee. So these experts has been selected by, or nominated by the government departments, and then based on a complete committee, proper authority works for this, and they have the main functions as they first enlist all the wetlands present in that country, present in our country, then projects and activities which are going to take place in nearby that wetlands, and they have a power to prohibit those activities if they think they may impact this wetland. So they have the full powers to restrict those developmental activities, and then they suggest some measures to create awareness among the local people as well as the local authorities who can specially connected to those wetlands, and they provide the framework and policies, and they formulate some rules to maintain that wetland. So these are the functions being played by State Wetland Authority in India. Like in case of Loktak Lake of Manipur, there is one hydropower is presently going on, but then that hydropower affects the overall management of that wetland, and because of that only that the whole biodiversity of that wetland comes under danger. So there are so many examples of such developmental activities which are taking place near to the wetlands, and because of that, there some certain restrictions has been placed to the developmental activities. Then National Wetland Committee. The head of the National Wetland Committee is the Secretary of MOEFCC, and this committee is National Wetland Committee has the functions like supervision of all the wetlands in their territory or in their jurisdiction, and then to ensure the proper implementation of rules of each state, whether all the rules are being properly implemented for the maintenance of that lake or not. And then to act as an advisor for the central government on the matters related to the conservation of wetlands. Then to develop a proper policies which will work for from the people side as well as for the nature side. So they look into that, and then they give some advice for collaboration of international agencies for the conservation of wetlands, because they get communicated from different organizations which are internationally known, and they can get the support for that wetland for its management. Then they also they suggest the names of wetland for the designation of Ramsar site to the government and then to the Ramsar authorities. Then this wetland conservation and management rule of 2017 was also updated on few aspects in 2020, and limited impacts on bodies like Central Wetland Regulatory Authority only has advisory power. So only advisory powers has been given to the Central Wetland Regulatory Authority. Then prohibition of activities. So this under this rule, they can prohibit some of the activities like expansion of any industries nearby the wetland, and then conversion of wetland for the non-wetland purpose. That also they can prohibit. Some of the uses of wetland for dumping ground or solid waste storage, they may restrict for that also. Also, they can restrict the influx of untreated chemical waste into the wetland, and also the sewage from any industries, houses, and village can also be restricted to dropped into the wetlands. Then the construction of any big infrastructure on permanent basis can also be restricted by these authorities, and also poaching and trespassing can also be done by these authorities. So if any other industries or the people, they are not following these rules, and if they are violating, then they get punished and under the EPA Act 1986. So EPA Act indirectly supports for the proper management of the wetland. Then coming to a national plan on aquatic ecosystems. In 2015, in India, we have National Lake Conservation Plan and National Wetland Conservation Program. So both this plan and this program has been jointly worked for wetlands and lakes. And then the main objective of this plan is to have the holistic conservation of wetlands, and this they have the focus on basically aspects like ameliorating the water quality and biodiversity. Any any interference with respect to water quality and biodiversity has been noticed by these authorities, and they take those activities under the EPA Act 1986, and the person may get punished. Also, MOEFCC notified some guidelines for wetland conservation and management rule 2019, and under that similar activities they have suggested like nodal authority, then prohibited activities and integrated management plan, and then that has been enforced at state as well as union territories. Then other laws which are already working in India are National Environment Policy 2006, Wildlife Protection Act 1972, then Forest Act 1927, and then Indian Fisheries Act 1857. So all these acts also helpful for the protection of fisheries as well as the forest or wildlife coming to that location. So they also contribute for the wetland conservation. Then coming to Ramsar Convention. Ramsar Convention was signed in 1971 by 170 countries on the date 2nd February 1971, and it was organized by the UNESCO. And on this 170 countries are the parties for this convention, and they have signed and they are abide by the rules, and then what are the objectives given by the Ramsar. So Ramsar means the conventional authorities. So the main purpose of Ramsar Convention was the wise use of the wetlands. Then list of wetlands for international importance, because there are so many wetlands which are very virgin and have the very pristine environment which need to be protected for balancing this environment. So they maintain a proper list of the wetlands which are highly important for balancing this whole environment of this earth. Then international collaboration, because there are many wetland where species are migrating from one wetland to another wetland, like from one country to another country. So in that case, those countries are bound to be protective for those species as well as protective for that particular wetland. And in that way, international collaboration is appreciated by Ramsar Convention. As an example is like Pantanal. The Pantanal wetland is the biggest wetland of this earth, where three countries like Bolivia, Brazil, and Paraguay. So these three, it occupies the area of all these three countries, and it's the biggest wetland, brackish water wetland of the planet. The definition given by Ramsar for the wetland is that wetlands are areas of marshes, springs, wetland, or water where natural or artificial, permanent or temporary, with water that is static or flowing, fresh, brackish or salt, including areas of marine water and depth of which at low tide mm, does not exceed 6 meter, and may incorporate riparian and coastal zones adjacent to wetlands and inlands of bodies and marine water deeper than 6 meter at low tide line within the wetland. So as per this definition, it is very clear, either it is the area of seashore, either it is the area of river or any riparian zone, or maybe the area of lake which is under the transition phase of aquatic as well as terrestrial zone. And they classified the wetlands as marine wetland, inland wetland, and man-made wetland. Under marine wetlands, saline water wetland, then brackish water wetland. Inland wetlands are classified as freshwater wetland and brackish water wetland, and under man-made wetland, it is ponds or seasonally flooded agricultural land as well. And these freshwater wetlands and brackish water wetlands, they can be permanent or seasonally, or maybe flowing water even. So, based on this classification, even agricultural paddy crop also comes under the category of wetland. Then they have 9 criteria for fixing or for designating the wetland for Ramsar Convention. Based on these 9 criteria, uh, if any wetland clears the condition of even one group A or group B, then also it can be considered as the Ramsar site. Like for example, under group A criteria is specifically on the rare and unique wetland type. So under unique and wetland type, as for example, the Lonar Lake. Lonar Lake is formed due to the crater, and that is that complete lake is being covered with the basalt rock. So that has a complete unique feature. Just it has a complete unique feature. Such lakes can be considered under the Group A category. Then under Group B category, the wetland which conserves the biological diversity, species and ecological communities, even vulnerable, endangered and critically endangered species or threatened ecological communities, if present at particular location, then that can be considered as the or considered for the Ramsar Convention. Some of the wetlands which are specially having typical character of biogeographical region of unique feature, or the biological diversity may be maximum if in that location, then also it can be considered. Otherwise, some of the wetlands which are having critical stage life cycle animals, like only few of the species went to the estuary for breeding, then we can say that particular type of fishes are coming to that location only. Then in that case also that that wetland need to be protected. Some of the criteria is that if it supports the water bird more than 20,000 at particular wetland, then in that case also it can be considered. And if not, then 1% of the individuals of population of one species may represent the 1% of whole of the world. Then in that case also that wetland can be declared or designated. So like for example, if we have thousand if we have thousand some species of A, and then we find there only 10 species, then also in that case that can be declared. So another criteria is based on the fishes, because some of the wetlands they have indigenous fishes. So this species may not be found in any other wetlands, and that because of that only that has to be protected, and that gives the global biological diversity, because that indigenous species contribute to the global biological diversity. So that wetland has to given some importance, so that in that criteria also that wetland may be considered. And then some of the wetlands are typically designated because some of the fish species are coming to that area for only breeding purpose or spawning purpose, or maybe the migratory path, because some of the estuaries are the migratory path for the a few of the species. So in that case also those wetlands may be considered for Ramsar site. And one more criteria is based on the taxa, or any 1% of the individual of population of one species or subspecies of wetland depend on non-avian animal species. In that case also, because this wetland especially supports the amphibians as well as reptiles also. So although there are no birds are not there, but then other fauna are also there, and maybe represent 1% of the population of whole of the world. Then in that case also that wetland can be designated under the Ramsar activities. So, what is Montreal Record? What this Ramsar Convention, the parties involved in this Ramsar Convention, what they do? The authorities which are involved in this, they make the Montreal Record. So, this is Montreal's records are the record. It is the registered maintained by this authorities, and they enlist all the lakes which are under Ramsar sites, because they have given the certain designation to that lake, and the proper conservation and management is being taken care by this Ramsar as well as the local government, with the support of local government and other organizations which are involved for the conservation of lakes, birds. So those organizations also collaborate with them, and they take care for particular that wetland. So if any changes are going on because of the anthropogenic activities, because of climatic change, because of soil erosion, or any runoff water, if any negative impact is going on, if any in any wetland, then in that case they record the those changes, whether it is positive change or negative change. But that has been recorded by this Montex record, and then proper measurement, proper measures being taken by the authorities. So for that only Montex record is maintained by Ramsar authorities. Earlier there was Chilka Lake was also there in the Montex record, but then after continuous efforts from state as well as central government and the local people, that the proper measures have taken place, and then that has been that satisfies the condition, and then it is removed from the Montex record. And then this authority received the Ramsar Award in 2002. Uh, but even though
Ma'am,
there is, yes,
ma'am, I'm sorry for interrupting you in between, but we have our next speaker from 12 noon. So I request you to please consider the time limit.
yes, definitely.
Thank you,
So,
ma'am.
yes, Chilka Lake and mm, Chilka Lake is also still in the Montex record. So accordingly, the government has to work Then for Ramsar toolkit is especially work on the wise use of wetlands, then policies, then laws, institution, basin management, then participatory management, outreach programs, and maintaining the list of Ramsar sites, and then managing these Ramsar sites with international cooperation. So this is the basic toolkit of Ramsar authorities. And then based on the Ramsar Convention helps to for the sustainable development of these wetlands. It provides the platform for exchange of views and thoughts to all the organizations working together for the betterment of this wetland. And then the government as well as the various authorities involved into it also encouraged for international cooperation. In India, we have 47 Ramsar sites, and out of that, Sundarban, Chilka Lake, Uttar Pradesh is having 9 wetlands. And recently, Renuka wetland has been designated, and these are the total 47 sites which are designated as a Ramsar site in India. And this is the map showing the complete wetlands in the India. On 47th wetland was Haidarpur wetland in Uttar Pradesh. So this is the work which we need to do togetherly by government, by people, and the authorities working in the same sector. So it is a now alarming situation because we are seeing the climatic changes and global warming. So that also affects for the existence of this wetland. So all the efforts from all different angles will definitely helpful for their conservation. So thank you very much. Questions are welcome. And madam, I think I have done the task given by you. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, ma'am, for sharing your valuable knowledge about wetlands and sparing your time with us and all the participants. Ma'am, we have few questions from the participants, and
Okay.
I'm asking one by one. The first question comes that what is the government doing to save wetlands? And any state and center government policies related to conservation and management of wetland biodiversity?
Okay. What is our country is doing? So, if you have attended this seminar, you will already. I have told you there is Wetland Conservation and Management Rule 2017 under EPA Act 1986. So, under this act, there is already State Wetland Authority, National Wetland Committee, and prohibition of activities and penalty. So, if all the efforts are being maintained done by this state as well as central government, and they monitor and maintain the wetlands present in this country. And if any activities which is not acceptable, then in that case there is a provision of violation of the rules and they get punished under that rules. So
Thank you, ma'am. The next
yes.
question is how does the Clean Water Act aim to protect Indian wetlands from being lost?
Clean Water Act, is it so?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. So if any industry is putting their untreated sewage into the water, that wetland. So in that case also this act can work, and under provision of violation of this act, that industry or a person can get punished. So all other related acts are also there which can indirectly help for the protection of wetlands.
Okay, ma'am. The next question is one more question, ma'am. What factors are responsible for increasing and decreasing the area of wetlands in India?
Okay. The factors like encroachment, conversion of wetland to non-wetland, and industrialization, then pollution, which we are seeing. These are the factors which are specially bring these wetlands under threat. And there are hardly few positive activities which were done by the government also for protection. They have done some constructed wetland for the treatment of the wastewater coming directly to these wetlands also. So this is some additional positive things done from government and different authorities. So in that way, the area of wetland has to be monitored, and that has been done by the Ramsar authorities. Internationally, they keep a checkpoint on all the important, very important wetlands, and which are highly significant for the maintenance, proper balancing of this earth.
Okay, ma'am. I request the participants to please drop your questions in the chat box if you want any of them to be asked by the speaker.
Okay, yeah.
And I request all the participants to please fill up the feedback form that is there in the comment section so that you can receive your e-certificates also. So I think, ma'am, there are no such questions arising now. Only three were there and you have asked them. So thank you so much, ma'am, for sparing your valuable time, sharing your knowledge and experience with us and all the participants. Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you.
So I now move ahead with our next speaker for the webinar, Ms. Pallavi Kadam, founder IP Adventure LLP, to kindly deliver her lecture on the topic climate change, IP issues and challenges. A very good afternoon, ma'am.
Yeah, very good afternoon, Deeparina madam. Thanks for
Yeah.
allowing me to enter this virtual platform.
Thank you so much, ma'am. But I would like to introduce the participants to you and you to the participants with your brief citation. Kindly allow me, ma'am.
Yeah, sure. Please go ahead.
Thank you, ma'am. So, ma'am is a certified Indian patent agent and she is assisting innovators for drafting, filing, and prosecuting their patents. She is very keen in spreading awareness about IP protection and its importance amongst various backgrounds like science and technology, engineering, pharma, agriculture, etc. Ma'am has delivered around 35 lectures for spreading the IPR awareness. She has work experience in patent drafting, filing, and prosecution in India. Ma'am is also the founder and designated partner of IP Adventure LLP from the year 2019 till date. She is also a patent and design facilitator under SIPP scheme, Lupin Research Pharmaceuticals, Sky Edge as Abstracts Glenmark Research Center, NCL, Pune. She has also attended various training programs that are related to IP. And with these words, I welcome you, ma'am, again to this webinar and kindly request you to please deliver your lecture.
Yeah, a very good afternoon to all of the participants and DIBNS. A very happy World Wetlands Day. Thanks for introducing this concept to me because I was unaware of this special day, and we never tried to maintain some sustainability during our livelihood. So thanks to all of you. Ma'am, few things I want to inform you. I'm going to stop my camera once I start my presentation, and
Okay,
I'm going
ma'am.
to play, yeah, a few of the videos in order to make the participants understand the nitty gritties of IPR.
Sure, ma'am.
In a audio visual manner. I hope this
Sure,
is
sure,
fine with
ma'am.
you. Yeah. Thanks a lot. I'm starting my presentation, ma'am.
Sure, ma'am, you can.
Yeah. So this is the day why we are here. So we had our two Diwalis in the state of Maharashtra with heavy rainfalls. Uh, the reason is the nothing but the climate change. So how I'm going to put this climate change with IPR related things that you will come to know very slowly. This is my introductory slide, and Rina ma'am has put all my introduction in a nicely manner. So my presentation will be totally based on the topic uh, uh, second topic IPR basics, and third topic what is biodiversity in brief, and what are all the challenges and issues we are facing on a daily basis, when we are handling this NBA related or Biodiversity Act related applications while filing patent applications for the sake of individual inventors or for the companies inside and outside India. So I'm not going to deal with the first topic because it is not my domain of expertise. It is being greatly taken care by Dr. Sharda ma'am, and Dr. Murugan sir is also going to throw light on the rest of the topic. So we are at IP Adventure. We are very keen to spread this word IPR awareness, and uh, from our establishment, we established in the year 2019 September, and we have conducted, as ma'am rightly said, 50 awareness campaigns, and I have conducted 35 sessions on this IPR topic, and I'm going to put few of the things which are totally unaware to a layman, and why people they stay away from filing patent or IP related things. And I'm going to connect this thing with the issue or nowadays discussed over the global platform. It is biodiversity. So this is the disclaimer. Since I am going to use few of the trademarks or copyrighted or design works for the purpose of the education. So these are the two W's. Actually, we conduct four W's, but for the sake of this session, I have chosen only two W's. Why to study IPR is the need of an hour, and when to start is the question that I want you all, including myself, to carry when to start thinking about IPRs and how we can get connected it with the climate change issues. So let me stop here. I'm going to share some interesting video with all of you. So it takes a minute or so. I hope the screen is visible. Rina ma'am, the screen is visible with the video? Ma'am, the screen is visible, no? Rina ma'am?
Yes, ma'am. Visible.
Okay. So let me go back to my presentation once again.
Sure, ma'am.
Yeah. So I was here. Now we have seen why to how to get this advantage of being developing a nation. So we need to study IPR to in order to make all the changes positively and in a sustainable manner. So let me go ahead, and I hope this image is visible to all of you. And this is a daily situation where myself and my partner Shalaka, we are coming across while interacting with the innovators or inventors or the creative people. So they mix all types of IPRs together, and they come and they inquire about how they can go ahead for filing all the types of IPRs in one place with Government of India. So if this slide is this slide is popping the same question in your mind, then this class is very important for you all. So if you don't see a problem with this question, then you need this class. So this is nothing but the human brain, out of which the human intellect or human creation or human intellectual labor comes out in various forms. Like uh, uh, we also create a lot of innovations in our home or in our kitchen or during our studies or during our leading our routine life, but we don't pay much attention to all these innovations or creations. So we are going to see how many types of IPRs are there, and what are all they meant for, and how they're useful for maintaining the biological diversity, or how we can sustain the climate change. So these are basically 9 types of IPRs recognized in India. Out of these 9, only 7 types are to be registered with Government of India with the special acts enacted by Government of India. Rest of the IPRs, they are eligible for keeping your information confidential, but they have to enact properly with the help of IP professionals, people like us. So, trade secret and traditional knowledge and plant varieties, I'm not going to talk about, because this is not the topic of today's discussion. I'll be especially focusing my talk on the patents. I'll be just throwing some initial introduction or some introductory light on trademark, industrial integrated circuit layouts, geographical indications, copyright. So this is the Indian Patent Office website, which is informing us the categorization of the intellectual property. So, in our earlier slide, we have seen the human brain. It is irrespective of the gender, age, color, criteria, and the educational qualification. Each and every human is having that intellect power of creativity. So that whatever is coming out of that intellectual work, the work, it is being classified in Indian scenario in two types. Globally, these are the main two categories, but we'll not go into deep about the global scenario. We'll be talking everything in Indian context with Indian Patent Act. So there are two types of intellectual properties. First is industrial property, which is used or exploited or commercially um, uh, uh, sold in the industrial sector, and copyrights and related rights is the second category, which needs some special things in order to get it separated from industrial property. Again, industrial property has been devised by the government of India in seven types that we have seen in the earlier slide. Uh, uh, the first is the industrial design. Once you see the shape of this Coca-Cola bottle, you'll be able to see the shape is the subject matter of this industrial design. Then second is the patents. So aspirin being the medical composition formulation, it is the subject matter of the patents. Third is trademarks. So the way of writing this Coca-Cola is the style particularly devised by the uh, Coca-Cola guys, and they have registered it as their own trademark. Then trade secrets, I'll not be talking about, because in Indian context, trade secret act, yet it is to be evolved. We can protect the trade secrets under the common course of civil law. So the way of writing this McDonald's and the Coca-Cola, it is the subject matter of trademarks. So next is the geographical indications. Geographical indications, these are the community rights given to a particular community in order to protect the specific works created by a group of artisans for manufacturing a particular cloth or accessory, toy, or edible items. So these are the two types of geographical indications which you are able to see on the screen. First is the Kolhapuri Saas from Kolhapur, and the second one is the Kolhapuri Chappal from again Kolhapur. Then comes the layout design of the semiconductor integrated circuits. So these are the circuits shown on the integrated circuit layout. It is the subject matter of the layout design registry. It doesn't come under the Patents Act, because these innovations, they are highly technologically advanced, and they are undergoing lots of changes due to this uh, global developments. Last is the plant varieties and farmers rights. So if a particular farmer carries out some hybridization and bringing out a new variety which is having sustainable model of the that particular crop, then that is the subject matter to undergo for the protection with plant variety and farmer registry, which comes under the Department of Ministry of Agriculture. While the rest of the all IPs, they are to be protected with the Department of Commerce Ministry, with the either with the Patent Office, Design Office, Trademark, or the GI Office. So this is the home page of the Indian Design Office. This is the granted design certificate for one of our clients for carrying out innovations in the stormwater drain grating patterns. This is the home page of the patents, and this is a granted patent certificate to one of our clients. And I'm going to show this invention in a audio visual manner at the end of my talk. This is the home page of trademark registry, and this is the granted trademark certificate for protecting this particular logo, the way the client has put the name. This is a publication house. They wanted to protect their particular shape and logo with the combination and with a tagline. Next comes the geographical indications. As I said earlier, geographical indications are the community rights. They cannot be owned by a single person or a single individual. They have to go with the community. So this is the geographical indication registry certificate issued to the Odisha Small Industries Corporation Limited for this Roshogulla. Next comes the plant variety authority page. So this is the page we use for filing our plant variety related applications for our individual inventors, for our farmers, or for our seed related companies. So this is the plant variety registry issued the certificate for the protection to the Arka Ajit, and it is the protected variety of the Indian Council of Agricultural Research. Next type of IP is the copyright, and we have seen in the first slide that there are two types of IPRs. One is industrial property and the other one is the copyright property. So copyright page typically looks like this. So we file our copyright related applications on this home page. This is the copyright certificate issued by the Copyright Registry New Delhi for this particular book. This is the Semiconductor Integrated Circuit Layout Design Registry, which grants the protection for the layout innovations carried on a particular integrated circuit. So I hope the basic understanding of the IPR is clear with all of you. There are 7 types of IPRs identified and registered in India. And 2 types of IPRs in general are industrial property and copyright related properties. So among industrial property, geographical indication is the community right that we have to keep in mind. The rest of the properties, they can be owned by either a single individual inventor, or it can be a group of companies or a company or MSMEs or startups. So now let me move ahead to the second W of my presentation. So how a person can start thinking of the IPRs. So this is the typical question we are coming across on our daily profession. So the Chinese proverb, it says that the best time to plant a tree was 20 years ago. Means it was it was long back. But the second best time is now. So if I want to know my global innovation index ranking of my nation, and if I want to put my own creativity in some tangible manner, then where am I standing in terms of global perspective? Then I need to understand what are all the basic types of IPRs. I need to know all these things either in the school or college or degree level, or in the university level, or else if I'm working with any of the employers, or if I'm going to start my entrepreneurial journey, then this information is highly preferable, advisable to know the importance of IPRs, the types of IPRs, the nitty-gritties involved in filing and in the prosecution of each type of IPR. So that the second best time to understand IP filing is just now. The moving ahead in my presentation, the second best time to understand the value of climate change is nothing but is starting it right from now. So this is the typical Indian IPR legislature. We have seen that patent, trademark, plant variety, semiconductor chips, geographical indications and designs are the industrial properties, and copyright is the copyright type of IP which has been categorized out of that industrial property. So I'll be throwing light on this Diversity Act later on. So these are the typical governing laws in India, and each and every act is being taken care of for the filings of patents, trademarks, plant varieties, or copyrights. So how this Diversity Act comes on this page, that might you might be wondering why this type of IP, or why this type of law is being discussed in the IPR matter. So that we'll be going to look into our presentation. So today is the 2nd February, World Wetlands Day. So we all are facing a lot of climate changes. In earlier days, the particular pattern of climate was being followed for generations and generations. But last decade, we have seen a lot of climate change, and we are facing lots of issues due to this. Similarly, World IP Day is also being celebrated throughout the globe on 26th of April. What is this World IP Day that we are going to see? In brief, so it is being celebrated by World Intellectual Property Organization, It is a United Nations agency which takes care and administers all types of IP related national and international issues. And we celebrate 26th April as the World IP Day. And this year's theme is the IP and youth. They need to be innovating for a better future. Now, this is the main topic of my discussion. Biological Diversity Act. We call it as BDA 2002. So, what is this act? It is an act enacted by the Parliament of India. And what is it playing a role in terms of the patent filing that we are going to look into very briefly? So, this is the act enacted by the Government of India, and it provides a smooth mechanism for equitable sharing of benefits arising out of the use of traditional biological resources and the traditional knowledge. And you might all be knowing about the Convention on Biological Diversity. So this act was enacted, the Biological Diversity Act was enacted to meet the obligations under the Convention on Biological Diversity. So we are going to see how this is helping for the individual inventors or the conservers or the traditionally farming communities in order to protect their biological resources. So, what is the main objective of enacting this Biological Diversity Act? And it's a recent act. We have just completed 20 years of this BDA Act. So, the main objective is to provide for conservation of the biological diversity. That is what we all are sitting in this virtual platform to discuss about the conservation of the biological diversity and how we can contribute to make this earth greener and a better place for the upcoming generations. So the next objective is the sustainable use of its components. Like Dr. Sharda ma'am has explained it very nicely about the wetlands and its conservation. So the other objective is to take fair and equitable sharing of the benefits arising out of the use of biological resources, knowledge, and for the connected matters. So the act very nicely describes what is this biological resource. I have deliberately removed the section number, the subsection, or the rules, or the specific section of that particular act. What I want to highlight is, you need to understand what is this Biological Diversity Act and how it is being collected with the Indian Patents Act in order to protect the individual inventors or the companies legal fencing, and in order to conserve the genetic material or the biological resources if the inventor or if the company is employing in their invention. So the biological resources are defined in this act as the plants, animals, and microorganisms or parts thereof, their genetic material and byproducts also. So biological resources are mainly the flora and fauna, whatever we are found, uh, we are able to figure in the surrounding atmosphere. But certainly it does not include human genetic material. If the inventor is using human genetic material, then he or she needs not to go to the Biological Diversity Authority for taking the prior permission for filing a patent. So there are some exceptions to this biological resources. So these are nothing but the value added products and human genetic material if the inventor is using for carrying out their invention. So why biodiversity is required for all of us as students of natural and biomedical sciences, and the faculty and the related staff present in this wonderful forum. They are totally aware of this biodiversity. I'm just trying to put some knowledge on this. Why are we sitting here and discussing about the conservation of the wetlands and the conservation of the ecosystems in and around us? So biodiversity, it always gives an ecological life support. It provides functioning ecosystems that supply oxygen, clean air and water, pollination of plants, pest control, wastewater treatment, and many ecosystem related services this biodiversity is offering to the mankind. But in return, we are just exploiting all the resources, and we are just not taking care of the conservation of all this flora and fauna and the wetlands. So what will be the consequences in the coming decade or in coming century? So for humans, definitely it is going to affect the livelihood if the wetlands are not properly protected, or if the biological resources are not taken care by the intellect community like us. And due to this, there may be scarcity of food, or then we will not be able to generate income, and we have to migrate to some other place in order to hunt for a better biodiversified place. How it is going to affect the planet? Definitely you all are aware. It is going to decline the number of the genetic variability and variety of species and the biological communities in a given area. So here comes the main topic of my presentation. This is a typical form 1 we use on a daily basis for filing patents on behalf of the inventors. So this is the form 1. It's a 5-page form. On the third page, we have this declaration. What it says: the invention, as disclosed in the specification, uses the biological material from India, and the necessary permission from the competent authority shall be submitted by me before the grant of patent to me. So we ask the inventors to put their sign on the below this declaration, and this is the place where we used to discuss with the inventors, especially if that invention belongs to herbal, or the or if it belongs to any if it employs any biological resource. In that case, we must seek permission from the National Biodiversity Authority, which is based in Chennai, and we do it, and we take due diligence for applying to the prior permission or prior approval from National Biodiversity Authority before filing a patent within or outside India. So if that research is employing any biological resource, then we take due care for going ahead for such type of inventions. So if an inventor doesn't obey this National Biodiversity Authority's words, and if they do not comply, then what are all the penalties available under the Biodiversity Act? So there are two types of penalties. One is imprisonment, which may extend up to 5 years, or you have to pay 10 lakh rupees, up to 10 lakh rupees as a fine. So wherever and whenever we come across with the herbal or cosmeceuticals related with any type of biological resources utilization, then we aware all our inventors to take care of the particular penalties, and to take care of the particular prior permissions for filing our inventions. So if there are any questions, please post in the chat box. I'm going to share the last video with all of you, which is an interesting video which explains how a patented invention is going to take care of a lot of casualties in a sustainable manner.
Life is a precious thing which is gifted to us by God. So it's our duty to prevent and save our life. As we all know, everyone on this earth can survive for a long time, but due to some lack of facility, we fail. Taking an example of an ambulance. Sometimes we see ambulance used to start with traffic light, but that time we are helpless. As sometimes other signal light is green and ambulance is starting with red light. And sometimes there is too much congestion in the same lane.
Or you must have seen a patient lying on stretcher without any personal data and given a normal treatment.
At this condition, usually hospital used to connect with police and waiting to get details from police station so that hospital can inform to patient family. So to avoid all this, we have implemented system and method for minimizing pre-treatment time for a person in casualty in your habitus environment. So let me explain how our system works. As we all know, traffic light function normal in normal condition. As soon as an ambulance with patient moving towards the hospital or without patient moving to the incident place, which is detected from X distance before the traffic junction. The signal for that road will turn green for X time till that ambulance passes traffic junction. And then signal will resume to the normal function. Condition 1. If another ambulance is detected on the same road and the signal remains clean green till the second ambulance passes. Condition 2. If suppose two ambulances are detected in opposite lane, then first in first out priority will be followed. That means ambulance which is detected first, that route signal will be green for X time till that ambulance passes, and then another route signal will be green after the first ambulance passes. You might be having a question in your mind that how ambulance is identified. Each ambulance will be associated with a unique identification card with unique number which says ambulance ID. When someone calls on 108 from the incident location where incident has taken place, then the system admin, i.e. control room, will search for the ambulance, and whichever ambulance is free, that ambulance will be assigned for the duty. This will get updated on the server. In short, ambulance will be assigned with the duty ID. When the ambulance will pick up the patient unique ID, for example Aadhaar card number, will be obtained from the biometric scan of the patient. This will be updated on the server. Patient fingerprint is not limited to only fingerprints, but it also contains iris scan, face scan, etc. will be scanned and associated unique ID for the person will be fetched from the server. Multiple biometric scanner, LED screen, mini computer, and communication unit to connect with the server will be used here in the ambulance. So now, along with the duty ID, patient ID will be associated with the ambulance ID. At the same time, a notification will send to the hospital,
And hospital will be calling to the patient family.
and also family will be notified with location of the hospital, and doctor will be notified with the medical history of the patient. So there will be no more delay in the treatment. When the reader will detect an incoming ambulance, it will check from the server if any duty ID is linked with the ambulance. If it is linked, then only the signal controller will be triggered. Otherwise, normal signal function will be observed. Here, an internet communication unit will be required. The duty ID and other details will be reset to default when the ambulance reaches the hospital with the patient. This will be done by receiving the authority at the hospital. Each activity on the server will be recorded with timestamp, and all the transaction and the communication are taking place through the server. Each action will be recorded on the storage unit. Local storage unit can be deployed on the external SD card module to log the activities. This entire statistical log of activities will be available to the concerned authorities if required in the future. I hope you understood about our system. Thank you.
So these were the this was the patent granted recently for one of our clients. I just wanted to highlight that if an inventor takes uh, intellectual efforts, then he or she needs to understand the power of that creation, and they have to take due diligence to get it registered with the patent office. And particularly if your invention is belonging to use of some biological resources, then I want to show you something. It is again related to a granted patent. So are you able to see this, ma'am?
Yes, ma'am, it's visible.
Yeah. So whatever we have seen theoretically, in my presentation, that we need to take prior approval from National Biodiversity Authority for filing patents if they are utilizing biological resources from the near vicinity. So this is a herbal cigarette invented by one of our inventor, and she is selling it after getting a grant. So she has packed all these and she's selling, and she has made this nicotine free substitute in various forms, a powder form or it's a gutka form. So this is one of the toughest invention we handled, since it required biological authorities permission. So we understood the whole process, and we wanted her, the lady, to protect her invention, the process, whatever technology she has developed in the food technology area. And she has to get, she needs to be aware of all the penalties mentioned in the Biological Diversity Act, which is collated with the Indian Patent Act. If they do not approve the application, no, then patent will not be granted in Indian scenario. So such type of inventions we handle, but the people are not aware. And if whatever the issues or challenges we are facing, that I want to share instead of presenting in the presentation. So once we say that these are the penalties, then the inventor runs back away. They don't file, and they don't come ahead and take a risk of filing that approval. So what I want to inform you all audience, that if you all take due diligence and take care of your environment, or you want to conserve the surrounding wetlands or the surrounding atmosphere, then we have to comply with all the acts enacted by the government of India in order to make a better place for us, and we can pass this legacy to the next generation if we feel that we are the responsible citizens. So this is where I want to stop, Rana ma'am. If there are any
Sure.
questions, I am happy to answer.
Yeah, ma'am, there's one question.
Yeah.
Ma'am, one participant is asking whether Mithila painting will come under copyright or geographical index.
So I need information on Mithila Pentil. Does it resemble to Madhubani? If it resembles to Madhubani painting, then it will go under geographical indication.
Okay, ma'am.
I need to search for this Mithila painting related information. And
Okay.
if possible, I'll send all the details to Bina ma'am, and she'll pass on to Kumar Sauru.
Sure, ma'am, sure.
Yeah.
Any further
Are there any
questions from the
questions?
participant? Yeah, ma'am, the answer is this. Yes, ma'am, it resembles to Madhubani.
Okay, then definitely it will go with geographical indication registration. So we have to meet the community who has developed this Mithila painting, and how many generations they are preserving, the way they are putting that painting, and how they are maintaining that legacy of generations, that we need to understand. And we need to prepare a huge documentation part, then we can file it with the geographical indication registry, government of India.
Okay, ma'am. We have one more question, ma'am. That what is the most important, most common IPR for agriculture industry?
Yeah, thanks, but sir, for asking this question. So there are two types of IPRs available with the agriculture industry related innovations. The first one, which I earlier spoke about, is the plant variety registration. For that plant variety protection, you have to register your plant variety with the plant variety authority. And if you are carrying out innovations in the tools, in the machinery, in the uh, uh, in or any form of new technology, if you are developing which is useful for agriculture, or for sowing the seeds, or for reaping the soil, or for keeping the soil moist, etc., all these come, they are the subject matters of the patents.
Okay, ma'am. Any other questions from the participants? I think, ma'am, there are no
Okay.
more questions.
Yeah.
Okay, ma'am.
I just want to
So,
conclude by saying that it is useful always to keep in mind about the approvals required for maintaining the biological diversity. If a person is using to develop some technology, or if a person is trying to protect that particular invention, and if he or she uses biological resource, then he or she needs to take prior approval of the National Biodiversity Authority, Chennai.
okay, ma'am.
Yeah.
So, thank you so much, ma'am, for sharing your
Yeah.
knowledge and
Yeah.
your time as well. And
Yeah.
it's been very, you can say, very interesting for all of us to listen to you. Thank you so much,
Yeah.
ma'am.
Yeah, thanks a lot. If there are any questions, no, you can send us on our official email or address, or you
Okay.
can fetch all the details from Bina Joshi ma'am.
Sure, ma'am. Sure, ma'am.
Yeah,
Thank you so
I
much,
hope this
ma'am.
audio visual presentation helped all of you to understand the basic things about the IPRs which we need to be aware. And since you all are in the faculty role, you need to understand if any student is approaching you for filing or for protecting or for just informing you that they have developed something, so you need to understand the power of that idea. So making that idea in the tangible form, you need to understand the intangible properties associated with that idea. Then only we'll be able to rise and shine in the global innovation index ranking. Yeah.
Sure, ma'am. Sure.
Yeah.
Thank you,
Thank you.
ma'am.
Yeah, thanks a lot. Can I leave the session, ma'am, now?
Yeah, sure, ma'am. Thank you so
Yeah.
much, ma'am,
Yeah,
for such
thank
an
you.
informative session. Thank you, ma'am.
Yeah, thank you, Deepali, ma'am. Yeah.
So, thank you so much, ma'am. And I now welcome our next speaker for the webinar, Dr. M. Muruganandam, Principal Scientist, ICAR, Indian Institute of Soil and Water Conservation, Dehradun, to deliver his lecture on the topic Wetlands and their importance for conservation of fish resources. I welcome Sir with his brief citation. Dr.
Yeah,
Muruganandam Muthia,
thank you, Dr. Deepali and
a very good
team
afternoon,
for.
sir.
Yeah, I'm audible.
Yeah, sir, you're audible.
Right, right. So I'm just sharing my slides. Okay.
Sir, let me have few minutes from your side to share your brief citation, please.
Yeah, I'm Muruganandam, working at Indian Institute of Soil and
No,
Water
sir,
Conservation.
sir, I will share from your side, sir. Let me have a few minutes from your side. Can I go ahead?
Yeah, yeah, you can. You are wholesale. Okay,
Thank
good.
you so
Thank you.
much, sir. So, by these words, I will be officially welcoming you. Okay, sir. So, Dr. Murugananda Muthia is a Fulbright scholar working as principal scientist, fishery sciences, and officer in charge, research, prioritization, monitoring, and evaluation cell at the Indian Council of Agriculture Research, Indian Institute of Soil and Water Conservation, Dehradun, India. He has over 25 years of multidisciplinary research, professional experience in natural resource management, integrated watershed management, soil water conservation, fisheries development, riverine wetland and biodiversity conservation, and influences of traditional knowledge. He has contributed innovatively and creatively across multiple themes of sustainable farming systems, livelihoods and food security avenues, and community mobilization. He had published over 100 scientific, technical papers, books, and compendiums, received 30 professional fellowships, recognitions, and awards, including Fulbright Fellowship, Fulbright Alumni Award, 3 national fellowships, Best Scientist, and Gold Medal as well, and many competitive grants. He has traveled extensively in USA and India and has networked with various state line departments, national and international research institutions, developmental organizations, universities, colleges, etc. A passionate researcher socializing science and technology. With these words, I welcome you, sir, and I request you to please share your presentation amongst all the participants.
Yeah, thank you, Dr. Deepali, for having me here. And I just share. Yeah. Is my slides visible?
Yes, sir.
So full screen?
Yes, sir. It's full screen now.
Okay. All right. Thank you, Dr. Deepali and our team for having me here on this important day of celebration wetlands.
It's
Wetland.
been a pleasure here also, sir.
Yeah. So I'll share my thoughts and details with me on wetlands and its importance for fisheries resources and livelihoods. Yeah. Is it all right?
It's all right,
Full
sir.
screen? Okay,
Yeah,
all
it's
right,
full
fine.
stream now.
Okay, okay, all right. So now, as we all know that by now you must be aware that we often equate these wetlands to kidneys on the earth, kidneys for the earth. When we equate these forests and tree covers and green cover to lungs of the earth, because it helps in respiration and bringing in the circulatory kind of air circulatory system in the air. Forest regenerate or generate oxygen and air system help in air circulation, and so people equate that as the lungs of the earth and these wetlands as the kidneys of the earth, because it absorbs all the ways and it filters what is required and what is not required, and it selectively promotes in terms of biodiversity and kind of natural resources. So this is an important ecosystem, and often it's in the ecotone. It's a bridge between terrestrial and aquatic ecosystem, and it's a land area that is often wet. So often it is inundated or saturated with water. May not be always, may not be permanently saturated with water. It could be seasonal also, who would fall into these wetland category, and it would invariably includes kind of marshes and ponds, lakes, rivers, tidal rivers, creeks, canals, and floodplains, swamps, estuaries, mangroves, lagoons. All that would come into kind of to be called as wetlands. And as per Ramsar Convention, it held in 1971, and since then it has become a very important ecosystem or kind of environment that needs to be conserved. And areas of marsh, fen, and peatland or water, whether natural or artificial, including artificial man-made ones, and permanent or temporary, or area with water that is static or flowing also. So it could be fresh water, brackish water, and salt water, marine water. Brackish water is diluted seawater. This river water, fresh water, fresh river water ends in marine water. There it becomes brackish water, diluted seawater, including areas of marine waters less than 6 meter depth at low tide. So this definition goes as per the Ramsar Convention, and there are some few exceptions as exclusive wetlands like river channels and paddy fields, man-made water bodies and tanks exclusively for drinking purpose or aquaculture, fish farming and salt production, recreation, or like that. But otherwise, all that includes wetlands only. But for convenience sake, we are exclusive, particularly in India, the experts exclude wetlands, these specific water bodies from the list of wetlands. Otherwise, wetland includes everything, every permanent or kind of man-made or natural water bodies which are inundated or which often covered under anoxic and anaerobic soil conditions. So the most of the soil area would be anoxic, which is requiring, which is lack of oxygen and hydric condition, and of course moist. So it is very typical of the wetland situations, and where this vegetation would be rich, both aquatic and terrestrial vegetation would be rich, often would be seen this submerged, floating, and rooted ferns, a kind of water lilies and lotus. All that would be common in these kind of wetlands. And of course, hydrology, water cycle, and features of watersheds and soil quality, and different types of land uses and land cover, and human activities, and of course, duration and frequency of inundation of water guides the wetland ecology and drives its specificity. And globally, we have got something around 6% of the air, the earth is under wetlands. But interestingly, they houses around something around 40% species of plants and animals. Such is the importance given to the wetlands, or such is the importance possessed by the wetlands, because lesser areas occupying or harboring a more number of species globally. And if you as regard to wetlands of India, that's we are something around, we have in India around 900 or 897 wetlands, of which majority falls into inland wetlands, and 70%, close to 70% is inland wetlands, and 27 coastal and brackish water wetlands, and 4% mix of all. And Ramsar wetlands, so far we had 60, 47, 46, and of late now we have added one to 47. So internationally significant wetlands again 129. Slowly we are adding to these Ramsar sites from these general wetlands in order to give importance for conservation and management. And other types of wetlands 721. So such is this is the distribution of wetlands in different parts of the country. And the country is nearly 4.7 or 5% of the land area is occupied under wetlands, which is something around 15.3 million hectare areas is under wetlands. And if you see the Ramsar site, we have 47 we have seen, and it is concentrated in this Europe area, and it is distributed across the globe because these after the Ramsar Convention, wetlands become important, and their significance is assumed greater importance, and globally experts are coming forward to conserve and manage them for various ecosystem services. And here is the Indian picture. This is 47 is Hyderpur, Uttar Pradesh, was lastly added as a Ramsar site. So otherwise we were having 46 and 47, and this is conglomerated more in the northern area, and otherwise it is spread across different parts of the country. And in Dehradun we have got that Asan barrage as a wetland. Why do we need to have this kind of wetland day or Ramsar Convention and Ramsar wetlands? Because they have got importance in many different ways of our life and ecosystems. So it helps in water purification, as we all know that, and it helps water regulation, promotes water recharge, groundwater recharge, and it helps in flood regulations. Checks floods, and it gives a sponge effect. It absorbs the excess water flow and reduces the impact of flood, and even like tsunami. During tsunami, these kind of wetlands and backwaters had come handy for rescue of resources and human population. And of course, wildlife and fish and these wetlands often become a biodiversity hotspot, and invariably help in biodiversity conservation. And of course, carbon sequestration, it is one of the important resources help in carbon sequestration, because the wetland soils being anaerobic, kind of anoxic conditions where these whatever the carbon accumulated or trapped in the soil and water would decompose slowly because of lack of oxygen. So invariably that becomes a carbon sinks. So when the carbon decomposition becomes slow and carbon is almost buried inside the kind of hydric soils or water resources, so it becomes a kind of carbon sinks. Similarly, on the other hand, these wetlands being rich in plant nutrients, kind of NPK and other minerals, and the plant species found in that area traps a huge amount of CO2 and carbon through photosynthesis, and they grow faster. So in there also they trap carbon dioxide and carbon, and help in carbon sequestration. So the features of the wetlands help in both the way, being anaerobic conditions of the soils, and again the rich in plant resources that circulates CO2 and carbon and traps carbon, carbon and helping carbon sequestration. And of course, it's a source of fish and food and nutrition for the people associated with that environment and ecosystem, and source of fishing, livelihoods, and economy. And most of the wetlands contribute variously for fishing and fish production and fish-based livelihoods, particularly Chilka lakes and kind of Vemana lakes, and even in this Azon barrage in our area is contributing to fish production and fishing and livelihoods. Of course, it's also contribute to erosion checks, because the roots of the vegetation binds the soils and it checks the erosive forces. And again, the floods being controlled, erosive force of the floods also reduced, and it gives the buffering effects against the erosive forces. And pollution regulation, of course, it absorbs the waste and nutrients which ends up in these wetlands. And by all these carbon sequestration and kind of erosion control and pollution regulation, and it contributes one way or other to the climate change mitigation, and it gives a kind of supporting ecosystem that helps climate regulation or climate mitigation. And of course, invariably, it's a source of recreation, ecotourism, hiking, boating, and bird watching. All that we all would be aware, and many times you would have been part of these kind of visits to wetlands. And of course, many a times it is associated with the historical, cultural, and scientific connections. Many wetlands have got religious and regional linkages. So it has got many different kind of significance, both food production, ecosystem oriented, and livelihoods and economy also. So that is where the wetland needs to be managed and conserved systematically, and that is where these wetland days are being organized of late. And here is a picture that again it emphasizes the importance how these wetlands and water bodies can help in many different ways that help human beings and ecosystem and environment, kind of runoff moderation, soil nutrient redistribution, and wild ecology promotion, and water-based entertainment and education. Also, it gives education. Having a wetland, it would give a lot of education to the public and academia. And agriculture household waste, and it absorbs all the waste, and its pollution potential also being reduced. And opportunity for integrated farming, wherever these open access water or wetlands available, there we can promote integrated farming and fish-based farming systems for food production and livelihoods, and increase employment and wasteland reduction, and sometimes water can also be used for irrigation, all that. So it has got many different benefits. And if you look at these mangroves and coastal wetlands, they immensely contribute to coastal fisheries and marine fisheries resources, because they produce a lot of nutrients, and these coastal wetlands are nutrient-rich ecosystems where more tropical shrimps and many fish species dwell for breeding or feeding grounds. And they provide physical habitat for a number of species for the coastal aquatic species, and the coastline protection also. Even during tsunami, there is a record that these mangroves and wetlands protected beyond certain expectations. And affected by, of course, excessive siltation and sedimentation, all the silts and sediments which reach the coastal belts would be trapped here, and that forms the important ecosystem for food fishes and ecosystems. And similarly, the seagrass system also provide nutrients and shelter for fish and shellfishes, and important nursery grounds, and they are all important wetlands in associated ecosystems. They need to be conserved. And similarly, these lagoons, kind of Chilka lagoons and other coastal lagoons, also important, become an important wetlands. They support many different fish species for their juveniles and adult phase, and of course absorbs waste and reduces pollution potential. And coral reefs also such associated with wetlands. and there are many different reefs. I'm just skipping here, and fringe reefs and barrier reefs on atolls, depending on their structure and features of the reefs, and then enclosed wetland or water body, they are differently called. And as regard to mountain, this part of the country and high mountain wetlands, Suraj Tal and kind of Kailash mountain, and there are many meadows in mountain. They include many wetlands of ecologically significant meadows. So they need conservation. And here is kind of Nainital and Daryatal, all mountain high mountain lakes. They are all epitome or examples of kind of wetlands. Here also this Asan barrage wetland is only one of the Ramsar wetland in Uttarakhand, which is promoting a kind of a bird sanctuary and recreation, and of course it contributes to irrigation and agriculture, irrigation, and fishing or livelihood or food production avenues also. So it has got a multi-dimensional, aspect interest is associated with this Asan barrage. And some of these dominant fish species are they are associated with these wetlands, Sisothorax and Cleptothorax tor species, and these are all local species are found in these wetlands. They contribute ecologically and economically for food and sustenance of habitats in such wetlands. And here is coastal wetlands where these kind of species are common. It's a tiger, prawn, pinnace, monodon, wild pinnace, indigus, and mullets, milkfish, hillsals, all coastal wetland associated species. Mudcrab is one of the important species, and pearl spot and anabas and sea bass and eel. These are all freshwater these coastal water species associated with coastal wetlands and mangrove ecosystems, because these ecosystems are very unique to these many different species, because these species, some of the species require both ecosystem of freshwater and brackish water or marine water ecosystems in either their adult stage or in their young one stages. For example, pinnace prawn, like these pinnace monodon and indigus, they breed, they mature in seas, and they breed in these estuaries and kind of coastal wetlands. So their subadults and juveniles and post larvae require these wetlands for feeding grounds, and for breeding they require marine ecosystem. So these associated wetlands and marine and both estuarine or brackish water ecosystem become important for these pinnace prawns. And similarly, Caridian prawns like these Macrobrachium, Rosenbergi, freshwater prawns, their adults mature in freshwater, but they breed in brackish water or estuarine wetlands or these coastal wetlands. So here these freshwater ecosystem or wetlands are required for these Caridian prawns like pinnace, kind of this Macrobrachium rosenbergi, and here pinnace monodon requires adult requires seawater. So both these associated wetlands, both coastal and freshwater or marine water associated wetlands, are important ecosystem and habitat for these coastal species, because they provide fishing and food, livelihoods and recreation avenues, and they contributing variously to capture and culture fisheries. Most of these associated population and peoples collect fish seedlings and even prawn seedlings as a source material for stocking material from these wetlands and ecosystems. And of course, food, fish, and fish farm. These wetlands often provides for space for farming through pens and cages and beels and berries and ponds and floodplain fisheries, important fisheries in these coastal wetlands. So it supports millions of people on for fishing and fish farming in associated with these wetlands. But of late, these wetlands are getting vanished in front of our eyes. Only most of the wetlands are drained for many different purposes, particularly land use change or urbanizations. During our childhood, we would have experienced many different wetlands in our close vicinity to villages and settlements. But those wetlands are drained for kind of real estate and other land uses, land use changes, industrial and urbanizations. So these wetlands are often said 3 times faster lost than forest covers or forest in our country. So it's a high time that we should recognize the importance and significance of these wetlands and protect their significance for ecosystems and food production and kind of livelihood avenues. So urbanization and land use changes and pollution, increasing pollution, increasing kind of urbanization and industrialization cause and increased or faulty agriculture often brings a lot of plant nutrients into these wetlands, and often they cause kind of eutrophication and causing algal blooms and fish kills. All are common in most of the wetlands. So we need to consider our actions and reactions happening in these important wetlands in order to sustain them for future. So, and in that context, we need to assess the biodiversity present in those important wetlands, maybe through some indicators and biodiversity assessment tools and techniques, kind of understanding the variety and abundance of fish species, what sort of the species are aquatic species are colonizing in such wetlands, and what is their dynamics over period. So whether they are reducing or increasing, and what is the change and what is the dynamics, so that we can evolve kind of recruitment based or reproduction based management, and we may bring in appropriate policy issues to regulate fishing and biodiversity conservation avenues. And pollution and stress tolerant species, what is the composition of a pollution or stress tolerant species, and how far this wetland is affected by these environmental impacts or kind of land use changes or pollution contribution. And similarly, biological integrity and what is the dynamics of different species, or what is the trophic state, or what is the composition of primary producer and consumers and decomposers, and what is the trophic status, is there any missing links in the ecosystem webs and trophic state. All that need to be studied periodically, and we need to monitor. And recreational suitability should also be assessed periodically, so that these wetlands can be monitored and managed. And keystone stressors impacting quality should be identified and excluded from these wetlands. For one such example is the ETP. These presence or observation on Ephemeroptera and Trichoptera and Placoptera. These are important insect species. Their presence indicates that this wetland is very sensitive, and they are the weaker or kind of sensitive species is dominating these wetlands. So these species are present in more in number, means this wetland is under stress. So they can be brought into management or kind of assessment protocol because they are fairly predictable and relatively easy to identify in field and laboratory. So such species should be monitored and regulated. And here it is observed and expectations. If the observed species is less than the one of the expected species as drawn from the reference sites would indicate these many taxon species are under loss, or this wetland is under stress. So we need to bring in management interventions. And for that, we need to consider, we may consider many indicator and sentinel species that are very sensitive to environmental changes and may give early warning. Early warning of wetland damage, and that would include keystone species. We all know that what would be the keystone species, because they are important for that particular ecosystem or wetland, and without which the ecosystem and habitat would be something different. No other species could replace its importance or in ecological niche values. So need not be largest or most abundant, but even the small marginal species also would become a keystone species, and so we need to identify them and monitor or conserve them. And similarly, umbrella species, again, it's an the umbrella species, the species which that affects the habitats and many various range of species. So that also to be identified and monitored. And foundation species, the species which creates and maintains the habitat. And ecosystem engineers, the species which contributes to the creation or construction of habitat and the ecosystem. So what are those species, and whether how they are behaving, what is their abundance and dynamics over time. And flagship species, important species ecologically and economically, like here is this marshy is very ecologically and economically important species. So how do that could be monitored and contribute included in monitoring. And in managing and maintaining wetlands and different aquatic ecosystem, we need to consider not only just bigger taxa species, even the benthos and planktons and epiphytes, all that biodiversity and abundance should also be assessed, because they are the they are founding species contributing to ecosystem. So we need to identify the insects and benthos and algae periodically to assess the health and management of these wetlands and aquatic ecosystems. That would include even the insects and tadpoles and young ones and different range of insects, all that, and different ecosystem components and macroalgae and microalgae, all that would become components of the ecosystem monitoring and management and wetland management. And now switching over to having seen the importance of wetlands importance and their ecosystem and their diversity, and what are the challenges that affect wetlands and water bodies in our country. So though we have got rich biodiversity, and our management protocol and our management capacity is at minimum only, and we need to monitor and manage this rich cultural diversity associated with these rich habitats and biodiversity and ecosystems. Our ecosystems and our habitats are very rugged and in different locations. Often it's often located in remote areas. All that causes poor management of wetlands and water bodies, and focusing more on larger size and high value based taxas, and we need to consider even the lower taxonomic groups, because they form the foundations of the ecosystems and habitats. And of course, climate change is also contributing to this loss of wetlands and kind of drying of wetlands, and so that we need to bring in into our management strategies to have a climate resilient management plans. And predominance of migrant population in this part of this Uttarakhand and country, and increasing interface between wildlife and biodiversity interests often that brings a hindrance in wildlife and biodiversity conservation in wetlands. And of course, we do have a limited or very limited or even no historical data in most wetlands, particularly biodiversity of different strata or taxonomic groups. And poor understanding on the interaction of upstream and downstream associated with the wetlands and other associated water bodies all that causes a kind of challenge for affecting this wetland. And for which we need to have a good coordination between different organizations like BSI, ZSI, FSI, and Forest Survey and Fishery Survey and kind of Himalayan Geology Institute, Wildlife and ICR institutes, all that. But presently we have poor coordination between each other and ignoring the capacity of local people. Local people's capacity should be recognized, and these ABS, access and benefit sharing system, which is helping this forest management, also comes handy in management of wetlands. And of course, lack of adequate research and training facilities. All these are some of these we could count as a kind of challenges that we need to consider and change in our management strategy strategically. Lack of policy-oriented research is also one of the issue, and for which we, of course, you would have seen in the morning a lot of many different wildlife acts and rules and regulation guidelines and agencies working on conservation of wetlands. The major one would be this Biological Diversity Act, which is currently under revision under Biological Diversity Act 2021, and Forest Act and Wildlife Protection Act and Wetland Conservation and Management Rules and Act. The recent one is 2017. It has increasingly recognized the importance of wetlands by combining this lake conservation and kind of wetland conservation as they have brought it as a water aquatic resource conservation. And these wetland conservation and management rules 17 explicitly focuses on wetland and conservation. And similarly, National Wetland Committee under these wetland Conservation and Management Act committees have been formed, and they are managing these wetland, into which many different state stakeholders and central stakeholders and the public are involved. A national plan for conservation of aquatic resources, aquatic ecosystems, by combining these lakes and wetland ecosystems. So at national level, there is a orange and kind of plan for conservation of aquatic resources, and there are many different plans and kind of action plans and policies are in place in conservation of wetlands and water resources of our country. And this Convention on Biological Diversity and UNCTAD is that internationally it is helping for conservation of biodiversity and wetland resources. And here in nationally, National Biodiversity Authority and state biodiversity boards, and this is state level, national level, and biodiversity management committee at village level, at 3 levels of village, panchayat and municipalities level, biodiversity management committees, and they prepare people's biodiversity registers. So at different levels, these national, state, and local, village and municipality levels, biodiversity significance and importance is given through Biodiversity Act 2002 and 21. And there are many different other agencies and provisions help wetlands and other water body resources like Fisheries and Aquaculture Infrastructure Development Fund and fisheries schemes and National Mission on Protein Supplements and NMC, Himalayan Sustainable Ecosystems, and National Mission for Green India Strives. All these focus one way or other for the sustenance of wetlands and water bodies. And often, of late, these legal right is also granted to the wetlands, rivers, and water bodies as a living entity by court of law. That we need to consider wetlands and ecosystems and rivers as a kind of living entity, and we need to protect their rights as that of human beings. And of course, Niti Aayog is looking for Himalayan Authority and Indian Himalayan regions for conservation of biodiversity in Indian Himalayan regions. These are all some of these focus on conservation of wetlands and water bodies. And considering all these, And as a way forward, we must inventorize and prioritize the resources at risk. We must understand, we must survey periodically and create a data bank on different aquatic species and terrestrial species associated with wetlands and water bodies, and the problem species, and what could be the technological solutions and policy solutions to conserve them. So we need to identify that and conduct action research on biodiversity and its assessment and stock assessment. It falls into that category only, and promote policy-oriented research. So how sort of what sort of policy may be required to conserve these wetlands and biodiversity, and for which we may create para experts and para vets and para fish vets who can help in taxonomical identification of many different species, because our wetlands and our water resources are extensive in nature, and we are short supplied with experts and taxonomies particularly. So we may train local people as a para taxonomies, and into which only these BMCs, biodiversity monitoring committee at a village level, comes handy, and which is supported by this National Biodiversity Board and the state biodiversity boards, and research on unexplored areas of all that, and we should develop these wetlands as a bioresources for ecology and economical developments. And here I would end by saying that we must go for need-based reforestation or forestation of these ecosystems, wetlands and water bodies, and we need to increase the flow, ecosystem, environmental flows in associated river courses. And we may engage modern and scientific technologies in mapping and mapping of wetlands and water resources. The government of India is doing this mapping periodically, and this Ministry of Forest and Environment, they bring up regularly wetland areas and extent in a GIS map. So, but we need to increase the frequency, and we may need to bring in more manpower in doing mapping and monitoring these resources, maybe through advanced technique like remote sensing and GIS, which is very common in other Western countries. In India, we are lagging behind. We need to gear up our technologies and our interventions to monitor and manage these important wetlands. Yeah. So we need to strengthen these access and benefit sharing associated with these wetlands and forest resources, and create environment awareness, and that is where these kind of wetland days and awareness days are being organized. And I'll skip and stop here, and I'll take up any question if anything. And thank you for giving me opportunity for sharing my views on this wetland management, wetland importance, and their association with fisheries. Thank you.
Thank you so much, sir, for sharing your valuable time with us and giving us knowledge, imparting knowledge about wetlands. On behalf of all the participants, I thank you once again. So, sir, there's one question that if any wetland, it has been lost due to any reason, then how it can be recovered again?
Yeah, the wetland recovery plan. Wetland recovery plan includes, it's a multidisciplinary task. First, we must identify what are those, what was its historical significance, and what was its historical biodiversity. And then we have got a battery of bioengineering measures, kind of if it is the wetland is associated with terrestrial ecosystem, we need to treat these terrestrial ecosystem with kind of bioengineering measures like trenching and bunding and kind of terraces if it is a hilly areas. So that again, soil and water conservation measures comes in handy in rehabilitation of this terrestrial ecosystem associated with wetlands, thereby increase the kind of moisture level and water availability in the wetland. And once this moisture level and water availability is increased, and again it is going to colonize with aquatic species and aquatic organisms and forming a wetland ecosystem. So it would include both interventions meant for terrestrial rehabilitation and aquatic ecosystem rehabilitation, and that would involve multidisciplinary team of soil and water conservation engineers and foresters and aquatic ecologists and environmentalists and and so on and so forth. Yeah,
Okay, sir.
and there
Any
is a
further
plan.
questions? Any further questions from the participants? I request all the participants to please fill up the feedback form clearly so that you can receive your e-certificates. So I think, sir, there are no further questions.
Yeah, thank you, and thank you for having organized this important day and taking pain of us bringing people and students and scholars together to think on, at least in this particular one day, that how these wetlands are important for us in terms of ecology and environment and livelihoods. Yeah, thank you. I appreciate all your effort. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you so much, sir, once again, sir. So now I will request Dr. Beena Joshi Bhatt ma'am to kindly deliver the vote of thanks.
Thank you, Dr. Deepali. Good afternoon, everyone. To the one and all present here, it is such an honor for me to get the opportunity to thank you all dignitaries on behalf of Zoology Department, Dolphin PG Institute of Biomedical and Natural Sciences, Dehradun. I extend a warm welcome to the people in the gathering. I would like to express my gratitude to all the esteemed delegates of the webinar for their presence and contribution to make this webinar a great success. I extend my gratitude to our eminent speakers, Dr. Sharda Kosankar, Environmental Biotechnology Genomics Division, CSIR NEEDI, Dr. M. Muruganandam, ICAR, Indian Institute of Soil and Water Conservation, Dehradun, Ms. Pallavi Kadam, founder, IP Adventure LLP, to take out their time from the busy schedule and share the knowledge with us. Thank you, ma'am, and thank you, sir. Our special thanks to Dr. Shalja Pant, Principal of the Institute, for providing immense support to make the webinar successful. I must thank the organizing team, volunteers, for working hard for the past few days to make this webinar successful. Last but not the least, I would like to thank the IT cell of our institute for their help and support. I congratulate all the participants for their active participation. Thank you everyone once again for making a great success. Thank you. Namaskar.
Thank you, man. Thank you. Thank you. You are
Thank you so much, sir.
good job. Good job. We enjoyed. Okay.
Thank you, sir.
Eh,
Thank you, sir. Thank you.